Big Sky Howdy, and welcome to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio, coming to you from the top of the continent in Montana, and with a guest from way up north near the Arctic Circle in the Alaska. Okay, but first, we need to do some other things that I need to announce here, and one of them is if you have something you need to contact me for, if you want to talk to me, for any reason, get me to come to some Bigfoot conference or go on expedition or something, you can always reach me at worldbigfootcentral@yahoo.com. If you have a cryptid sighting, something potentially that was really upsetting to you to the point that maybe just short of or end up to and including PTSD, there really isn't too much that clinicians can do for you, but we do have a hotline you can call. Deb is standing by. She will listen to your encounter and account, and if you need to have more guidance in what she can give, she'll put you in touch with me. The number there is 503-662-2678. Now then, if you're all beat up, banged up, and walking wreck like I am, and you need additional help from CBD products, I have made them available to anybody that wants to get high-quality CBD product and also help support the show with a tiny fraction of your purchase. And you can go check out my store at myctfocbd.com, Duke Sullivan. That is .com/Duke Sullivan. And finally, if you want to help support the show and keep them coming to you, and God bless you that do, and I really, really need your help because the show is not monetized. YouTube completely demonetized this channel over a year ago, and I'm surviving entirely on the goodwill, love, and charity of those who like the show and send in donations. So please feel encouraged to send in donations, and you can do that at paypal.me/World Bigfoot Central. And with that, we're going to get to our guest. And tonight's guest, this is sort of interesting because one of the people that was just on the expedition with me there 2 weeks ago, and one of the people that saw Bigfoot last year but didn't really see anything this year, just called me the same exact night that my guest that we're having on the show tonight called me to tell me they were out coyote hunting, and one group that was driving the coyotes up to the other guys ran into a track line with the tracks of 3 or 4 Bigfoot individuals, which they then documented and photographed and everything. So we're going to actually have that on the show later. But interestingly, the very night before this and the day that this happened, I was in contact with the guest that we have on the show tonight, who is moose hunting up in Alaska. And he is a longtime listener to the show, and he's been a great help to the show. I've been in contact with him for a while. He brings me interesting reports of things that have happened up in Alaska, local sightings and stuff like that. But until recently, he's never had anything that was really this direct. So I thought it would be fun and interesting to have him on, and especially because he did a great job and documented everything, so he can really bring it to you guys and show it to you guys. And with that, let me introduce our guest from Alaska, Scott. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, it's an honor. I'm thrilled.
It's great to have you here, man. It's what really thrills me is when people not only listen to the show, but they actually pay attention to it. And some of them go out in the field and go, you know what, that makes sense to me. I can go look for that, and I can try and find evidence around where I live. And then they get a hold of me and they send me pictures of things that they find. And I absolutely love that. And some of the places you get them from, you'd be surprised. I get pictures of Bigfoot tree structures sent to me from Ireland. I get pictures of Bigfoot tracks sent to me from Kurdistan. And, so it's really, really super fun for me getting the feedback from the fans going, hey, Duke, I put into practice some of what you were saying and went and took a look around, and guess what I found? And it's just, again, a thrill to have somebody that's a regular listener and viewer of the show get out there, put boots on the ground, and encounter something pretty extraordinary. And with that, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your background and sort of the probable Bigfoot encounter that you had leading up to this and sort of what got you interested in all of it.
Yeah, well, so I was thinking about that, and I realized that it really started with Les Stroud, when he did his first shows with Todd Standing, that fascinated me, and I couldn't wait for his, Survivor Man Bigfoot series to come out sometime later, which it did, and I enjoyed that. But in the meantime, I just kind of dove into the whole subject and started, listening, looking at different groups online. Oh, I think the first one that I got really deeply into was Bigfoot Outlaw Radio, and I listened to their, 40-something episodes at the time and recorded.
Guys.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. It just seemed like it was the first one that seemed like it. They just had a good common sense approach to it, and what all of what they said seemed to make sense. And when I know Standing is controversial, but I will say this: I had one thing happen about 20 years ago. I had a young kid visiting up from Michigan. It was in the summer, and it was like the last night before he was going to go home. And we'd go out and we'd do campfire stuff like that. And I thought, we need to go have a campfire before we leave. So we jumped in the vehicle and we went driving, looking for a good, dark, quiet spot that we wouldn't, bother anybody or be bothered. And so we drove a good ways and down, this one highway to this older highway to this dead end road, that goes about 10 miles up towards the glacier. And at the time, and there's a big resort at the end of it now, but at the time, it was just a small cul-de-sac with, surrounded by trees, and the other side goes down to the river up towards the glacier and all the good stuff. And pulled the vehicle, which was an older model 4Runner with a hatchback, and turned it around, pointing out, and pulled out a bundle of wood that was kind of shrink wrap that I picked up at the local convenience store, so I could just easily, have some firewood, and had this big Bowie knife, and I'm cutting the shrink wrap off of it on the table. I'm standing there and I'm listening, and I'm hearing this low-pitched growl coming in my mind. I'm thinking, it sounds like something is growling at us. It wasn't real loud at this time, but I turned to the kid and I said, do you hear something? And he like quotes my thoughts. He says, it sounds like something is growling at us. Well, I fling the wood into the back of the truck and slam the tailgate up, and we run like Keystone Cops to jump in the car. I throw the knife at him. I'm surprised I didn't stab him. And sat there for a minute with the window cracked, and then decided to beat a hasty retreat out of there. Well, for about 20 years, I'm sitting there going through in my mind what this critter could have been. Was it a wolverine? I listened to a wolverine. No, it wasn't a wolverine. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a this. It wasn't a that. And when I heard that video that Standing put out where he's got the flares and the thing's growling at him much louder, but it sounded to me like the same growl. And I thought, that's the only thing I've heard that matched that growl. It was just, we didn't stick around for it to get loud and aggressive. We ran pretty fast, but I don't know if that was, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or anything like that. But all I can say is, with all the animals that I've listened to, I didn't hear anything that matched up. And so I always kind of wondered if I had, kind of popped into a spot and something was standing in the woods and just started off with a low pitch growl, and we took the hint real early and beat feet. And then I started watching those videos, and I started listening to the podcasts and Sasquatch Chronicles and some other ones, and some were too cheesy for me, and some seemed to be better, and I've probably listened to over. I have no doubt it's over 1,000 encounters. The people's witness encounters, whether it's Wes's Sasquatch Chronicles or your show or others. It might be approaching a couple of thousand, and I think that sometimes you can look and you see a video and you can say that's a guy in a suit. That's lousy. That's not even a good imitation. But there's a whole bunch of them that are just. I just became convinced that there is something to this. There's too many people all over the place, too much history, too much. It's got to be real, it's just got to be real, So, I listened to Rio and, Utah Sasquatch and, learned a lot about tree structures from him and learned a lot about behavior from you and the guests that you have on. And it just fascinated me. And then I started developing this habit of, asking people, people that tended to be out in the woods and the mountains and stuff. Hey, you ever have anything weird happen? You ever have any, and it surprised me how many, not everybody, not even a majority, but how many, there was a lot more than I expected that would pause and think about it for a moment and then go, okay, I'll tell you. And
you forgot to mention the furtive glance in both directions after the pause before they. Yeah,
exactly.
I've seen that one before.
And I can't tell you how many times that people have said, oh, well, this has happened, that's happened. In fact, a friend of mine that spent a lot of time out there gold mining and doing different stuff, he was one of the first ones, and he was like, yeah, okay, I'll tell you. And he tells me about how he's out there and he's got this big food container, big military cooler that he's stuck in the river with holes in it so that it would the cold water would keep his food nice and cold. Got rocks in it to weigh it down so it doesn't float away. And he gets up in the morning, and this thing has been picked up and carried about 50 to 75 yards from the river over boulders and on the trail on the other side of the boulders and emptied. Everything is gone. The cooler hasn't been scattered and stuff. It's been carried and in the same several nights that he and his sons are in the bus and something grabs the bus and goes, and shakes. And this is a full-sized school bus converted to an RV. And it literally shoves it and gives it, it's like something's outside, grabs it and goes, and shakes it. It scared the crap out of them. And it seemed like something in that area wasn't real happy with the mining activity that was going on. So this guy, this friend, he's we were mining one time and he's borrowed my four-wheelers, and he and another fella have gone off in this other area, and I'm somewhere else. I think I'm back at the camp or whatever. And they come out and they tell me they have actually seen a Bigfoot. The guy with the bus saw it and hit the gas and took off. The guy behind him saw it and thought that the guy in front of him was playing a joke on him, until he realized that it wasn't him. He was gone, and he took off. And so it's this fella that I went out with moose hunting. And this was just last weekend. So we go out and we go to the same area where they've seen him, because he says he just saw another fresh track that was about 18 inches long, and he had a video on his phone. And I kind of videoed the video of his phone, because our phones aren't compatible and the file doesn't transfer easily. And so I just videoed it and I sent you that picture. In fact, I posted that picture on MeWe on World Bigfoot Central, and that was that 18-inch print. So that was the week before. Then we went out this last weekend, and he's actually a pretty good tracker. He knew what to look for, but we start off and we went out 3 separate times, one evening, the next morning, and then that evening. And the first evening, it just blew my mind, because the river's very low. You can drive out onto it with a truck. You can go out onto it with a four-wheeler. You can get out into areas that you normally can't get to because the water's so low. There's still fish coming up it, so there's a lot of food. We come up fairly early on this set of tracks, and there's a whole bunch of bear tracks. They're very clearly brown bear. Some people call them grizzly. technically it's not a grizzly if it's within 100 miles of coastline. It's a brown bear. But so if I say brown bear, that's what it means. Brown bear, grizzly, whatever. Anyway, big brown bear tracks, but right with the tracks, and in fact, in some cases, stepping into the track, there are what look like giant human footprints. One was extremely clear. It just is about 14 to 16 inches long, and it just looked like a big flat-footed human footprint. And then and in another place, it steps into a track, and it just blew my mind, because there was nobody knew where we were going. In fact, we didn't know where we were going. We were just heading out to this certain area and wandering around, and right there, boom. It's like, my God, here it is. There it is right there. And it was, we several times we found this combination of bear tracks, what looked like a canine, maybe a coyote track, and these Bigfoot tracks. In fact, whenever it looked like this thing was following the bear, it looked like it had a canine with it, which was really odd. I can't say the canine was there at the same time, but the tracks were all looked like the same age. They weren't old. They were really, really fairly new. And then we move on and we go deeper into the river and deeper into the woods, and this is a big braided river, so there's these islands that have lots of trees grown up on them, and so we get into there, and in some places we're going down trails that used to be areas that water ran, and we're trying to find what he had found the week earlier, and that was upside down trees that had been uprooted and jammed into the ground upside down. And I said, that's a major sign. That's a big
time.
Let's find that. Well, we never found it, but we're looking for those. And so as we're looking for them, we keep coming across more and more tracks. So we found repeated 18-inch tracks, real long, about 10 inches wide. It looked like the same individual, kind of over and over. A lot of them were about a week old, we estimated. Some of them were pretty fresh, but most of the big ones tended towards, closer to a week or so, with maybe one or two or three being, my God, that looks wet. That looks like it just happened, And then we found.
Did you find tree snaps along the line of gravel?
Yeah. In some cases we're going through these trails. In other cases we're just beating through the brush, trying to find our way to these upside down trees, right? So as we beat through the brush, we come upon some areas where, and every time we found a tree break, it was at least 6 foot tall. I'm 5'10". So it was at least 6 foot tall. And one of the pictures I sent you, I'm standing underneath it. You can see that it's a good 2 to 4 inches above my head. And, and they're all, of that. And they've got green leaves on them, or they've got leaves that have turned, but all the trees around them are in the same fall turning. So these are, these just happened. They're recent, yeah, because the leaves would be completely different or gone or something like that. It's been summer all long. It's not snow. You wouldn't have leaves on them. You wouldn't have green bark, and in some of the cases, and we came in through one area where there was a couple of small X's. So in this one spot, the first night we got into this one spot where we found some snaps, some breaks, some tree breaks. We found like this double X structure. And we found somewhere near there, we found this big double break. And under the double break, there was 2 big prints. And so these, when I say big, I mean, they were probably about 3 inch at least, maybe 4 inch in diameter, 6 or maybe 6.5 feet high on both sides. And one was snapped to the right and one was snapped to the left, like something stood there and just broke it with one hand each, downward. And there's trees there. So, but in this little area with those snaps and those X's, it was getting dark. And as we're starting to move out, we hear something moving to the right of us. And when we stopped, it would stop. And it would not start again until we started up again, and then we'd stop again. And
this sounds vaguely familiar.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I've heard about this over and over again, and it's happening. It's happening to me. And one of the guys, he has a tendency to take booze with him, so he's like more drunk than when he left, and he's wanting to bang on trees, and I'm getting mad, and I'm taking the stick from him. It's like, no, you're not doing this, and you need to, I saw one over there, I'm going to go rush it. And it's like, no, you're not doing this. And so we're getting upset, but and we try to get him to stop right away with us, and he'd stumble, and something, and then it would cover up the sound. But when we could get everybody to stop all at once, we would hear another step or two, and then it would stop. And it was like, okay, I told you this before. Whenever I've watched videos, I've always been I've always had this feeling when the people would say, okay, I'm ready to go. I think we need to get out of here. And I would think in my mind, wait a minute, that's why you're there. Why are you leaving now? All of a sudden, I've got this feeling of, okay, this has really been exciting, but I think I've drank. I think I've had enough. My cup is full. I'm ready to go. And for instantly, I kind of got it. It was like, this has been wonderful. I think I've had enough for tonight, and I want to get out of here. And when we were being paced out, that was how I felt. It was like, okay, I'm ready to leave. I'm ready. I didn't feel like this deep sense of foreboding. I was just like, this is a lot. I think I'm good. I think I'm good right.
Yeah. Yeah. You're finding snaps, you're finding tracks, you're getting paced out. You got a pretty good idea who's pacing you out.
It's all for real right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've been a believer, but now I'm kind of shifted into this experiencer, and it's like, okay, I it would be great to see one, but I don't think I want to tonight, So we finally got out, and that was the end of the first night. And then we came back in the morning. And
now you went back to the spooky old bus that's being used.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, thanks for your help with that. You're telling me, don't be surprised if something comes and slaps the bus tonight. Okay, that's what I need to do. Thanks.
No, folks, he literally called me when they got back to the bus and gave me the update on everything that happened. Yeah. And I told him that it was his duty as a proper Bigfoot viewer and researcher, now that he had encountered this evidence, to go back and thoroughly document the living bejeebus on everything the next day. And meanwhile, how far away were you? And he said, about 25-minute ATV ride. And I said, oh, geez, they'll probably come visit you tonight. Don't be surprised if they show up and slap on the side of the bus.
And you know what? I overestimated that. It really was only about 5-10 minutes.
So it could have been even easier for them to show up.
Oh, yeah,
they must have really been disinterested with you guys because they didn't bother.
It'd have been really easy.
As far as yeah.
Yeah, it'd have been really easy. In fact, the second night I was so freaked out that I ended up putting the extra mattresses in the bus against the back window because I couldn't stand the thought of something peeking in on me. I told the guy, I like to sleep alone because I don't like to bother people and stuff, and I want to have my privacy and all that. But I told him, I said, hey, I got the shotgun, and if anything comes knocking, we're going to end up in the same bed together because I'm coming in.
It'd be even funnier though is if after you put the mattresses up against the window at the back of the bus, you heard this voice from outside go, oh
no, I couldn't. I don't think I could have handled it. I don't think I could have done it. That'd have been too much. But yeah, I did go back in the morning, and then we did a morning expedition, and then we went down some other trails. And we went through this one area that I dubbed the crib, like the baby crib. And right. the reason I dubbed it that, it was this clearing in the middle of this island. So this island is covered with trees, but there's this clearing down the middle of it. So anything that would be in there would be very protected because it has trees all around it. You can't get to the middle without making a ton of racket coming through the thick alders and brush and everything like that. But while we were in there, we found just a slew of small prints. And by small, I mean about 10 inches. And there might have been some smaller than that, but most of the small ones, whenever we measured them, they were about 10 inches long. And I got to tell you, I finally get the difference between seeing them in person and seeing them in a picture, because when I take the pictures, it's like, okay, I'm doing my best to get a good angle so that I can get the right contrast and see the contours and all that. But being there, you see it so clearly. I mean, you can sit there and look at the pictures that are, have been uploaded or whatever. And you can say, yeah, well, maybe. You know what? I'm sorry. I was there. There was no maybe.
Well, you get some that, are just like, when you look at the picture, it's so freaking obvious it's a real track. It's not even arguable.
Yeah.
The problem is when you're there live, what you can see with the naked eye and what the camera will actually duplicate successfully are two vastly different things.
Yeah.
And it's really annoying, because I've obviously encountered this a zillion times, where you've got this huge track and you're like, this is awesome. And then you try and take a picture of it and you're like,
yeah, it doesn't show.
It looks like crap.
You see the impression, you see the wetness to it because it's fairly fresh, and there's a moisture that has kind of come up from the ground from it being pressed down, and you can see the toes, and the camera just doesn't capture all that, but you can see it so clear. You're sitting there and you're looking at them and you're going, my God, that's a footprint. That's a real footprint. And they're all over. There's no way somebody knew where we were going. We didn't know where we were going. We were busted through. We were looking for these trees, and so we get into the crib, and there's a bunch of these little tracks, and there's two piles of stool, one with berries, and it's not huge, like it was a big animal. It was small enough that it could have been a dog or a coyote or something. It wasn't bear, I can tell you that. It wasn't moose. I mean, I know what those things look like. This was a had the tubular caliber. I'm sure you'll put the pictures up. But the thing that was interesting about it was they were right by small tracks, a bunch of them. And there were a few large tracks in the crib, but not very many. It was mostly these small tracks. Like, this was the area that the little one could be safe because there was so much brush, surrounding it. And so that was kind of wild. And then we come across some that are prints in sand. And it's sand that if there was a light rain, they would be gone. If there was a good breeze, they would be gone. So those are fairly fresh. One in sand, you can see the metatarsal break. You can see where the ball of the foot bends deeply into the sand, and and the heel's higher, so you can see that metatarsal break, and that was about 14 inches if I remember correctly. And it was just crazy how many we came across. I was just befuddled. It was like I never really expected to come across that much sign just going out, and we went out with the purpose of looking for tracks and finding these trees, but I didn't expect to find that many. There were so many. I got tired.
Seek and ye shall find, but it helps to be in an area where they're actually around.
Well, I got tired of taking pictures because it was like, okay, these aren't any better than the other ones that I took. So, and I'm just tired of taking pictures. I came in this one area and it was a cut bank, and then there was this little slough, and then the gravel came up. So it was like a little hidden area where if something walked through there, it would be sort of protected. And I just, on a hunch, went over there and looked, and I'll be darned, two big tracks stuck right in the mud there. Something had walked through there, and it was like, dang, And then we came through this one area, and we found, at one spot we found some scattered bones and a tote, a perfectly good tote. It was filled with rainwater. It wasn't busted. It wasn't broken. I can't say that somebody didn't leave it out there. I just can't see why anybody would have left it out there. But here's the other thing about it. There was the tote. There were these old animal bones scattered around it, and there were tracks nearby. So it makes you wonder, did this tote get stolen? You know, did they do the camp robber thing and take it out? And, you know,
they use it for a water receptacle.
I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's, you know, I can't say that it wasn't a person thing, but it was with bones and Bigfoot tracks. So, and then we got into another area that had a whole bunch more scattered bones, jawbone of like a small moose and, you know, some vertebrae and ribs and things like that. And they were just sort of scattered around, and there were tracks, all around. So it just went on and on. And then we went back in for the day, and we came back that night. Now, when we came back that night, I went out by myself on my four-wheeler, and the other two guys went out with the truck, and we were gonna try to focus on moose hunting. And so I got out and I went across the river out into a big gravel bar, and then I hung out there, did some moose calls. I heard them after a while drive up, and we kind of hollered at each other and flashed lights, and I heard them doing moose calls. But while I was out there, I didn't find very many tracks. I did find one, maybe a couple others, one kind of old, faint one. And while I was there, I kind of stood there and just kind of talked about, the weekend, and what the experience was like and everything. But, and I after it got kind of dark, I decided it was getting dark enough. So I beat feet or rolled tires or whatever you want to say, across the river and got back to where the road was. And I waited by the truck because they had parked it there and walked in. And I thought maybe maybe while I'm sitting there, are they going to come around? Are they going to throw stuff? Who knows, whatever. Nothing really happened. Well, it appears that nothing really happened because while those two were out there trying to shoot a moose, when they did take one shot at a moose and missed, but I heard that shot. But then they came out, and they said when they came out, two paced them out, one on each side, and this time they weren't quiet about it. They were snapping twigs and stomping loudly. It was like whomp, whomp, whomp. And so they, the leader, the one guy says, hey, let's put our hands up in the air, kind of show our hands, nothing in our hands. And we're and they walked out till they got to the trail and into the truck. And that's why I told you about that. And he said, yeah, they got escorted out. And I said, yeah. And it was almost like they kicked the dirt and said, and stay out.
Yeah. Well, and considering all the sign and what's been going on around there and everything, I wouldn't go hunting in that area. It sounds like that they think that's their own little hunting preserve, and you guys shouldn't be in there taking any of their moose.
Well, I don't know that it would stop me from going hunting. I think I would still do it, unless I had a.
No, I'm not saying
really
don't
aggressive.
go hunting, but just don't go hunting in that particular area. I think that's what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, so I did want to get out of there when it was getting a little too real, but I would probably go back at this point. And I think that's probably because it wasn't anything super scary or traumatic. It was just enough to make me feel like I was.
If you're just trotting around there, not doing much of anything, they probably don't care. If you're in there, like, trying to shoot their moose, who got escorted out? The guys that took a shot, even though they missed.
Yeah, well, that's true. If now this might sound silly, but if I was to get one shot, I think I would literally say out loud, "You're welcome to the gut pile. You're welcome to, have some, that we leave. We just need to take this home to feed our family. And if you're good with that, we're good with leaving you something." And maybe they get it. I don't know. But.
Well, according to most of those that have tried, they seem to understand whatever the local human language is to some degree. They observe us as much as they can, and when they get a chance to listen to the language, there's no doubt they're trying to absorb words and figure out what they are. So, I mean, if you keep it simple and straight to the point, Hey,
Yeah.
I'll leave you some.
Right. Exactly. And I would. I really would. In fact, I left a protein bar out there where we sat and had lunch, and I got a little tired and everything. And I don't know, peace offering kind of a thing. I'm not into habituating, and I'm not wanting to do that, but I am okay with a peace offering. So but
Yeah, when we were up there at Blue Mountain, I was up there with Vinny G, the 3, and we took a little hike up to the top of the power line, cutting back down again. And when we came back down, there was a little 2-foot tall stone stack that wasn't there 20 minutes before we came up. And so we left them an apple, like, hey, nice job, man.
Yeah. I just got to say again, it is one thing, and I have watched and listened to hundreds and probably over 1,000, different shows and encounters and all that kind of a thing. It is just a whole nother level when you actually see it for yourself. You actually start having some movement around you. You see things that you've been looking at, and you know that there's just no way this was faked. There's no way that this was fake. I didn't tell you. I didn't mention about the one. There was a fella that we think was kind of living in his truck or whatever, and he was kind of close to the road, but he was parked in the river against a stand of trees, on a gravel bar. And we passed him on the first evening in, and he was snoozing. He was snoozing in his truck. So we were all on the 4-wheelers at that time, and we go out and we do all the things that I just told you about. But when we came back that way, we come up to this one spot, and there was this whole slew of small, like about 10, 12-inch tracks. And when you look at them from afar, they look like mud boots. But when you look at them close, you see toes in them. And they looked like they had just been made in the mud. Literally, they looked like they were minutes old. And so what we figured was,
Dewey's up there peeking at him while he's sleeping.
He's peeking at this guy in the truck. And we found it looked like there might have been 1 or 2 big tracks, but not. I didn't. I was so excited. I did just a crappy job videoing. It was the worst job ever, and I didn't get down in the mud and take good pictures. And I was just so excited. And we, but there's these tracks, like it ran around as we drove up and then took off. And that's what we think happened, was that something was kind of paying attention to this guy. And as we come up on the 4-wheelers, it beat feet and left these amazingly fresh tracks that just kind of, it had stepped out toward the truck for a ways, but then ran back and then ran kind of back and forth and into the woods. And it just blew my mind, because these were just made. So what do we got, a kid out there barefoot that's hoaxing us, running around in the mud? About 10 to 12 inch, tracks, the video doesn't, I tried to do some still frames on the video where you could kind of catch, that there's toe prints in these things. But like I said, I did such a crappy job being so excited about videoing it. I didn't get a good video, but I did see that there were toe prints in each of these tracks. These were not mud boots, and they looked minutes old. Just, when something's been freshly made in mud, there's no question about it, and we think it ran off just as it hurt us coming up, and that was really exciting, which hence produced a really crappy video, but it was really exciting, because it was so, I couldn't believe we found so much in this fairly small area on this really, really big river up here. Yeah. Really braided river. It just blew my, and it's not far from populated area. It was unreal. It was just unreal. I just can't get over the feeling of the difference of actually seeing the stuff and knowing that this could not have been faked. this could not have been faked. You know, there's just the circumstances just didn't warrant it. You know.
Well, you get different levels of that too. Let me give you an example of this. Even us old farts that have been doing this for quite a long time now and think we've seen everything are sometimes surprised. And, you know, Kevin is a good example of that, you know, how much Bigfoot interaction he had.
Sure.
And he's up here visiting and camping, and he finds this X structure. It's like, 30, 40 feet high, and both sides are upside down. The red balls are up in the air. Okay, skeptics, explain how that happened naturally.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You don't go out to places where people are expecting you to go. You know, it's not like somebody can plan to go ahead of you, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of
thing.
thing.
The other thing is when we road squatch occasionally because, yeah, believe it or not, there's actually areas around here where you can see structures right from the roads, and then you can go in and find other stuff. But sometimes we just have a rough idea of where they are, and we go, there isn't even a game trail. You know, we'll go in off some game trail or something, and then we'll just wander and go wander around. And like humans don't usually do that. And that's when you find a lot of this stuff.
Right. Exactly. You're just wandering. You know, how can anybody go ahead of you where you're just wandering? You know,
there's no possible way. There's no possible way. And some of the stuff that, well, you know, up here with the deluxe jumbo size ones that we apparently have, we find tree structures that are so big that, you know, unless you had 20 people with heavy equipment or, you know, like a Sikorsky helicopter or something to rearrange timber with, you couldn't make it anyway. Right.
You couldn't do it. Yeah. And all these snaps that we had, you know, almost all of them were at least 6 feet. They had tracks nearby. I mean, and they had leaves that were, you know, either green or in the same state of turning as all the other trees around them because it's fall, you know. It's current. It just happened, you know. So what did that? Was there a windstorm that came and, you know, blew straight down into this whole big scrub of trees and only busted those two trees, that tree there or that tree there, you know, at 6
like
foot.
Where it hit the two and broke them in exactly opposite directions.
Yeah. And that one was impressive. The others were very impressive in just the fact that they were 6 foot tall. They kept being at least 6 foot tall, and they had tracks nearby, and they had green leaves on them. But those ones that the double one, that was big and thick. That was a big boy that did that. It was a big. He did a number on that, and you can see, you know, how snapped it is in the splintered. You know, one has got this big tall splinter straight up from where it was busted off to the right, and then there's still a big splinter sticking straight up. You know, it took force to do that. You know, and it was recent. It was, you know, it was current. So you know, and there's tracks underneath it. There's tracks right underneath it where it looked like something stood and grabbed the trees, and so you put all that together, and that's in the middle of a stand of woods that there's no reason for anybody to go unless they're just wandering like us, you know. So there's just the circumstances when they come together like that, you just know that it's not fake. You just know that it's not fake. There's too many of these pieces that come together that say, this is real. You know, this is really here. This really happened. Something with a really big flat foot that was heavy pressing down into this gravel, you know, gravel bar and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's weird. What's weird about that is in some areas it had to be very heavy to press in, and in other areas it's almost like they had a light touch because it would have been much deeper. And I don't understand that. I don't understand how you can have both really heavy pressing in on kind of hard packed gravelly, you know, ground, It's got to be heavy enough to make this dent. And in other areas, you got sand where if it was super heavy, it would have been even deeper. But it looks like they left a light touch. I don't get that. I'm not sure how to reconcile that.
It's because of the Bigfoot motto: walk softly and carry a big stink.
A big stink. Oh, gosh. Well, it was a very interesting weekend, and it's definitely, it definitely is kind of a game changer as far as stepping up the experience. Not just seeing all these things, on.
Yeah, it's one thing to hear about it on shows or to see documentaries or, shows like mine where you get to look at the pictures and the video and stuff. But when you're actually out there and you find it yourself, and especially in circumstances where you're like about 99.9% certain that it's like, hey, ain't no humans made this.
Well, you know what? I really didn't expect to find it found. He said we were going to go out there and he thought that he could find tracks, but I thought maybe we'll find a track or two, because, he knows where to look. He saw him before, but we just kept finding the stuff. This was definitely an area that what looks like a small family group is hanging out in. And it was way more than I expected to see. And it
must not be much of a human presence there. Let me guess that there's hardly ever humans in that area.
Well, I can't say that because there actually is a fair amount of people that will. In fact, the second evening there was a man and like 3 or 4 of his kids, on various size 4-wheelers that headed out onto the river and buzzed around. And a lot of these people, they're not looking. They're not looking at at the ground. They're not looking. They're driving right over or right next to a track, and they never even see it. But we're driving and we're looking, and it's like, what about this? And then you look at it and you go, I'll be darned. It's got toes. There's an outline here. Look, I can see the heel, and it's like, it's like your eye all of a sudden is tuned in to pick this stuff up. And, and you look at it in the picture and you go, yeah, well, maybe, but I tell you what, you're sitting there and you're standing over it and you're going, no, this has got toes. This has an outline and it's got a heel. I can see the print. This is a print,
Sometimes in those situations, video actually helps. Because you can kneel down and you can go, look, here's the little toe, here's this and this, point them out with your fingers and stuff.
And I did that.
And then people can see it, better with that sort of thing. But sometimes you don't have that luxury at all. You got is just like a picture camera with you. And you're going like, okay, I got to wait until about 3 hours from now when the sun's starting to set and the angle will actually highlight the edge of the track. So you can see it better, and then come back and take a picture of it 3 hours from. I've literally had to do that before.
Well, and that's why I would take pictures and then I would run video so that I could get a better, image of what was actually there and kind of point it out. And so there's a lot of the pictures that I sent you that have video that accompany it. So hopefully that's helpful. But it was certainly, it was much more than I ever expected. I really, I'm sitting up here in Alaska and I'm thinking, well, where do I go? Do I go back over this mountain range over here and hike down into this valley and look, and, people say they know how to look at a map and kind of predict where they're at, and they're pretty good at that, but I don't really know any of that stuff. So, but and because of this friend who happened to have run around the last couple of years and has bumped into these things and seen them, he kind of knew where to go. And
yeah, like I bumped into him in this particular area. We should go look in this particular area.
And that's what happened. And then, but there was a whole lot more. Because we kind of we spent probably 3 or 4 hours each of the three, the 2 evenings and the 1 morning. We spent about 3 or 4 hours each time. So we were out there at least 12 hours, but just wandering around. We never did find those upside down trees again. We couldn't find the right path, and we would run out of time each time and just kind of.
I hope he can find those again at some point in the future and document it, because I literally have people bugging me about that. Duke, where are the upside down trees we keep hearing about? And I'm like, there's legends that there's some of them around Montana here, but nobody's ever documented one to my knowledge. And all the ones that I know about are up in Alaska. Well, so I know you guys have got them up there somewhere. Just get some pictures,
Well, we'll try again maybe in a weekend or two if the weather holds, but because I got to go back up that way. But yeah, it was quite a weekend. It was, and you know what? I'm just a big mouth. I can't keep my mouth shut. I'm showing my son-in-law, and I'm showing my pastor and the visiting minister, and I'm showing my wife, and I say, I know this just adds another page or chapter to the old man's crazy, but I just got to.
The old man's got proof, though. He ain't crazy. Look, imaginary thing doesn't leave huge track.
Yeah. Well, but they're looking at pictures. They weren't there. They didn't have the whole experience. They didn't wander through the woods and find them in the middle of a stand of trees where there's no reason for anybody to have been in that spot, because we just wandered to that spot. They didn't. I get it. They don't have that whole experience. I feel the difference between looking at a ton of evidence. First of all, if you don't look at a bunch of evidence, it's just a story. It's a story that could easily be explained by a million different things if you really don't look into it. If you look at a ton of the evidence like I have, well, then you can get pretty convinced, because there's just too darn many people from all walks of life talking about this for them to all be lying and them to all be hoaxed. So you can get convinced by getting into it deeply and watching and looking at a lot of stuff. But until you actually start finding the stuff, you don't know what that feels like. You don't know what all the things that come into play. The fact that you wandered into this spot, that you're looking at something that was buried under leaves. It wasn't left there for you to find. You kind of noticed an outline. You pick the leaves away and you go, darn, there's toes. There's an outline. There's a heel. There's an impression. It's sort of moist. I mean, all those circumstances come together, and that this wasn't a fake, because it's the whole experience together that makes it so absolutely undeniable to yourself that this is anything but a real thing, So it just really is. It was really exciting. I'm really happy about it, because it wasn't a big scary experience. I don't know what I would have done.
I mean, you still haven't actually seen one, but I mean, just short of seeing one, that's a ton of evidence, and anybody that's not a complete idiot would look at that big pile of evidence if they were there in your boots like you were and go, Bigfoot's real. They're hanging around here. Well, I showed it to my pastor and the visiting minister, and they were like, first of all, the pastor's pretty open-minded, and he was like, well, you know what my thoughts are on a bunch of stuff. And the visiting minister was like, what? Are you kidding me? It's like, yeah, well, here's the picture. This is what I found out there in the middle of nowhere. I showed one of the best, clearest prints, but it was, and so I'm not real good at kind of keeping, it on the down low and all that kind of thing. But I'm okay with they already think I'm a little nuts. I'm the guy that's going to fly the plane upside down through the barn like secondhand lions, when you get too old, so that's how net Bigfoot with it while you're doing it. Yeah. That's how my family figures I'm going to end up going. I figure the older you get, the more risky your hobbies need to get, because you gotta give God a few opportunities to say, is it time? But man, hey, I sure have enjoyed getting to know you, and the fact that you've been willing to talk and be, so conversant with me, and it really has been
a pleasure, and I want to tell you on the air how much I appreciate it. I'll just say I support your show, that, but I'm saying that for the listeners. Hey, support the show. It's worth it. There's not many people that I will, give, money to. I get tired of this. You want to round up for, to stop child hunger or to stop this or that, all that annoys me. But I think that, your show's worth supporting, and to that end, like we talked about, I'm willing to make some silver Bigfoots to give to, supporters and stuff like that, because I mess around with precious metals, and if that ever comes up, I'm willing to do something to step up the support of the show. So because I just think it's been really worthwhile. So I appreciate it, Duke. I just want you to know that.
Wow, I sure appreciate the kind words, brother, and that's an awesome offer. We'll have to talk about that some more here in the future. What do you guys think? Some little flat silver ingots with like a World Bigfoot central design on it, or a Bigfoot or something like that? Give me some feedback. And that's a wonderful idea. And I want to thank you for being such a wonderful supporter of the show and actually taking the time to contact me. And believe it or not, people, if you contact me 99.9% of the time, I will get back to you. There's an occasional email that gets lost, or I just, something happens, I delete it by accident or something stupid like that. I do that kind of stuff. And then I feel bad forever, because I can't remember who it was that sent me the message or ever try to get back to him again. If you're one of those people, please message me again. I'm sorry. But, I want to treat people that like my show the same way I would want to be treated if I liked someone else's show. If I wanted to contact them and I had questions that were important, that I thought were important, I would want to have access to them and be able to do that. And so I try and do that as much as possible with, what time I have available, and I find that it's 100% worth it. And not only because I can help people, but because sometimes it comes back in situations like this. Like, for a while now, you've been sending me really cool Bigfoot sightings and little person reports and just pictures of neat things that were found up there. You sent the picture in of the little person fish drying hut.
Yeah.
For those of you who saw that a few episodes ago, this is the guy that sent that picture in. So he's been sending in some cool stuff for a while now, but just like finally now, he's actually seen his own Bigfoot evidence. So I thought it would be like super cool to have him on the show. And obviously, he did a great job of documenting it too. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, man, it was a blast.
All right, brother. Well, you know what? The next time you find Bigfoot, make sure you get some video of him, and then come back on the show and show everybody. And I know you'll be ready to go by next weekend. So go, go, go.
Yeah. And anybody in Alaska that wants to, get a hold of me, you just get contact Duke. I'm happy to coordinate with folks. I already had somebody here ring me up on Facebook, say, hey, I saw you on this website, and I just moved to this city, and do you have a lot of sightings? And I said, it's kind of late. Can I get back to you another day? But I'd be happy to talk with you.
Yeah.
But I'm good with meeting folks and talking. But yeah,
I thoroughly encourage everybody else that's up there in Alaska that's listening to you make your plea to actually react to it, because I know for a fact there's a ton of cryptid sightings in Alaska. And you guys be slacking. Get on the stick and report them.
That send me reports, and pictures and stuff like that. And those are the things that I kind of end up feeding to you, because they've kind of, there's I do some work out in the native health villages and stuff like that. And so I know some people out in various far-flung, I get all over the state, so either work or play. And so I'm trying to cultivate more contacts of people that are willing to, talk with me. I mean, I'm not going to make it a big, life's work. I got too many other things going on, but it is interesting enough that I'm certainly willing to put a little bit of time into it. So
99% of the people that are into this, it's all a hobby thing anyway. It's just hobby status in their life. It's like, who the hell can you name that's making a living off this?
Yeah.
Right. So No, and nobody. Anyway, so the other thing is there, general plea to any Alaskans that may have actually had a mountain giant sighting or something. Please come on the show. Tell us about it. You can be anonymous. I don't care. I know there's sightings up there. Come on the show. Tell us about it. We know you've seen them.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, hey, it's been a blast and a real honor to be on the show. So thanks a bunch.
Well, thanks again for being on the show, Scott. And again, don't forget, in the future, more stuff happens. Come back on the show, update us. And, as far as that goes, feel free to come on and just even regale us with local Bigfoot sighting stories. I appreciate that sort of thing, too, where local researchers will collect up a ton of local stories and stuff. And, feel free to just come on the show and tell the stories that they've collected around their area because, man, it takes forever to try and track down all the people that had the encounters and get recordings from them. But if somebody's been collecting them for you, you can get a bunch of interesting stories all in one show. So, again, anybody else out there that's doing that sort of thing, get a hold of me.
You got it.
All right. With that, thanks a lot for being on the show, Scott. We're going to let you go. We're going to let everybody else go. And don't forget, look forward to another show coming up here with my research team member, Shane, who will be telling you guys about what I referenced earlier in the show, where they're out coyote zapping. And he ran into the same thing with a track line of a bunch of Bigfoot tracks of different size individuals. And one of them apparently gigantic. And they got at least 2 good tracks from that one. So anyway, until then, everybody, you know the drill.